this course sequence is designed to build a firm foundation of understanding in the Ageless Wisdom. I'm just going to read off a few comments here about this on this page that you can see. As explained before, there are 4 blocks of 10 classes each, and preferably a new student, the teachings cannot miss the first classes or come in late after the course has begun, because it is built in a sequence of understanding that are kind of like missing bricks in the wall if you miss a class, or the foundation of understanding, particularly if you're a new student, will be missing. So we encourage you to stick with it if you can. There'll be other more experienced students coming in who will just come in for 1 or 2 classes that they're mainly interested in or want to brush up on. We are all the eternal students. And myself, I'm excited about doing this course to brush up on a lot of these classes myself, and to reimagine them, if you like. And the course, as most of you know, is based upon the teachings of the Tibetan Master Dwar School, or DK, as transmitted through Alice Bailey through 24 books that she wrote over a 30-year period between 1919 and 1949. And of course, most of these teachings are written about in my newsletters and books. So even though those teachings were written over a century ago, the teachings are timeless, hence the term the Ageless Wisdom, or the perennial philosophy. So I just want to note that references to man or men in the mantras or in DK's quotes refers to humanity esoterically considered from the Sanskrit manas, or mind. This is something that I can elaborate upon somewhere down the track in the course. And this is a beginner's course in occultism or esotericism. I like to say that we're all mystics learning to be true white magicians, to understand subtle energies and to direct them accordingly. And there are so many components of the Ageless Wisdom, and hence the extensive nature of this course. And this is just the first year. There has been a second year that I devised several years ago, and you could keep on going endlessly, infinitely, really. And we find with the Ageless Wisdom, we may have read some of the Bailey books, for instance, 10 or 20 years ago, and then we come back to them again, and we find that we reread them as if for the first time, because we're reading them on a new level with greater understanding from the previous reading, from a previous ploughing of the field, as I like to say. So before we get into the class, we will start with the meditation. Most of you received this meditation. It was sent out for those who registered. It's taken from one of the Bailey books called Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2. And this diagram here is one of the diagrams in that meditation that discusses the stimulation of the solar plexus and the raising of energies up into the head center and then sent back down again. I propose that we do this first part of the meditation for the next 6 months, and then for the second 6 months, for the other half of the course, we do the second stage. So after doing it regularly, you'll understand why I propose this. So it's a meditation for awakening the heart and invoking the spiritual will. And I've just summarized a few points here that I just want to run through related to some of the main points that DK made about this meditation. He says this meditation brings about a group unity rooted in love, and this requires the awakening of the heart center into greater potency. Group unity. We're talking about group work in this unfolding Aquarian age, which is all about cooperation and community. Only from the heart center can stream in reality those lines of energy which link and bind together. This heart center, when adequately radiatory and magnetic, will relate you afresh to each other and to all the world. When connected by an act of the spiritual will to the solar plexus center, will help to produce that telepathic interplay. The activity of the heart center never demonstrates in connection with individuals. This is a basic fact. There are 2 points of vital light within the solar plexus, which makes this center of dominant importance and a clearinghouse for the centers below the diaphragm to those above it. This is a major realization for aspirants and disciples on the path, the nature of the solar plexus, which is discussed in one of the Bailey books to great length in a treatise on white magic. Some of you, I'm sure, have already read. One of those points of light is connected with the lower psychic and astral life, and the other is brought into livingness by the inflow from the head center. But more of that will become apparent in the second stage of the meditation that we'll practice in several months' time. So having said that, let's jump into the meditation. It's not very long, about 10 minutes. And we start off with an alignment. I'm going to use the singing bowl to sound a few chimes before each Om. We sound the Om softly 3 times to bring about individual and group alignment. And just take a couple of breaths to release the activity of the day, move into that place of silence within. We visualize the light of the highest self blending with the lesser light of your integrated personality. And we enter into a reflective alignment of soul and personality using the creative imagination. And this is a feeling or astral activity. Reflective alignment, soul and personality. Using the imagination in the astral body. Then we assume a relation of solar plexus, heart and head centers, with the focus of the assuming consciousness held in the region of the ajna or brow chakra, and this is done mentally. Solar plexus, heart and head. When this has been achieved and realized, There follows next the concentration of aspiration and of thought in the heart center, imagining it to be just between the shoulder blades. It must be recognized that the concentration of thought energy is definitely there. Then follows the conscious and pictorial or imaginative withdrawal of the heart's aspiration, life and devotion into the center above the head, the thousand-petal lotus or crown chakra, and its conscious focusing there, withdrawing the heart's aspiration, life and devotion into the crown chakra. When this stage has been reached and the conscious recognition of place and activity is being gently yet surely held, we sound the sacred word Om very softly 3 times, breathing it out towards the soul. Om. The hierarchy or masters of wisdom. Om. And humanity. Om. We then say with heartfelt intent the mantra of unification, which you can see on your screens if you don't know it. The sons of men are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love which underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate, and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all men love. DKN joins us to endeavour throughout the day to continue holding this recollection steady and work always in due remembrance of the morning's meditation. Of course, like all meditations, we try not to look for results. It's a process that can take a while, depending on who you are and your stage of evolutionary unfoldment, your raise, your astrology, and so forth. It's a real building process where we persist steadily. All right. So thank you everyone for participating in that. at the monthly webinars that we have, we do the standard issue, if you like, full moon meditation. It's in 6 different stages. Most of you are familiar with that. All right, so let us dive in. There's about 40 classes in this course. Some of the classes are threefold. There's 3 classes on the rays, for instance, 3 classes on glamour, 3 classes on the externalization of the hierarchy, and so forth. So there's at least 30 different subjects that we will be exploring. And one of the first ones is the subject of the Masters of Wisdom, which was one of my first books that I wrote about back in 2000. The Masters of Wisdom who have guided human evolution for millennia. Who are they? There have been many illusions perpetrated about them. See the mark that they have left in human history and understand their purpose now. The Masters Moya or M, Kutumi or KH, Rakotsi or the Master R, Master Jesus, Master Hilarion, and so forth. These are the beings that constitute the hierarchy. There's not that many of them on the planet, yet they guide over and watch human evolution, allowing for free will by humanity as much as possible. And of course, the big thing that I talk about in my newsletters quite frequently lately is that they are having a once-in-a-century conclave in 2025, where they will choose a date in which to externalize back amongst humanity again for the first time in a very, very long time, as I've also delineated in my books and newsletters. So our increasing awareness of who the masters are and what their function is also corresponds to the 7 rays. There are 7 major Chohans or custodians of the rays, amongst these masters, and they transmit the ray energies or help the transmission of the ray energies, which is a little bit more complex than that just that simple statement. The picture on the cover of my book, Masters of the 7 Rays, is called Christ or Jesus in the Mountains when he was being tested. And you can see this demon down here, the skull. Anyway, so in this course, there will be various tools that, like these planes of perception charts, that are really necessary, particularly for beginners if you're new to occultism or the Ageless Wisdom or the Theosophical Wisdom, as it's also called. This chart here is from one of the Bailey books. It's available on my website at this link down here, which I think Natalia may post in the chat box. And you can download it there if you wish. It's something that I advise new students to print out and have beside their study desk to get to learn the gradations of energy, essentially, the frequencies of matter going from the very dense physical plane, of course, up to the less dense astral, mental, and Buddhic planes and so forth, all the way up to the top here. So these are the 7 planes of our solar system, the physical plane as a whole of our solar system, if you like. The other chart next to this one is something that some students have done to delineate other factors, and we're going to try and make all these charts available on our website. They're not all there at the moment. I don't think there's any there right now, but you can get them off my website. And also from my newsletters, I use copious diagrams and graphics in my newsletters, and maybe many of you have already saved them to your own hard drive from there. You're quite welcome to do that. So the septenary or sevenfold nature of our solar system, of ourselves. There are many different septenaries, the 7 chakras, the 7 planes, the 7 subplanes of each plane, all those kind of things. The 7 chohans are the sevenfold foundation of the ageless wisdom that we can build upon. And so 3 classes on the rays over 3 weeks. 7 rays part 1, 2 and 3. This diagram, this graphic next to here shows the basic simple descent of the 7 rays as they pass through the gateway of the sun from cosmic sources and down eventually to our Earth and distributed by the various planets in our solar system to this Earth. They condition our whole solar system. They are the basis of our deepest psychology and form a foundation for the sevenfold constitution of the mysteries. The 7 rishis of the Great Bear, for instance, and the 7 stars of the Pleiades and Sirius constitute a triangle that these rays pour through. And these 7 rays are essentially what esoteric astrology is about. Esoteric astrology is the science of the 7 rays, but they can be studied separately from astrology, just in terms of identifying the particular ray in your makeup, what your soul ray is, what your personality ray is, mental body, emotional body, physical body rays. And these can be ascertained through obviously study, but quite essentially reflection and meditation. These teachings can be understood with a concrete mind, and many people do just that without meditating or reflecting upon them. But the meditation component is essential for really penetrating to an understanding of the teachings and also awakening the intuition. Just advise some of you have still got your videos on to turn them off if you don't mind. Thanks. 7 rays part 2, how the rays affect every kingdom in nature, influencing plants, animals, nations and humans. 7 rays part 3, putting it all together in terms of practical understanding through examples of famous personalities in history, the rays foremost in expression in scientists, politicians, musicians, spiritual leaders and so forth. And that's pretty much what I've been trying to do for the last 20 years in all my writings, to apply esoteric astrology and the science of the 7 rays in a practical sense to unfolding world events, but also famous people in history. And you can go to my website to a part of the menu that says search by subject, and you can find pretty much anything that you can think of is in there. It's quite a big resource now. Got a few comments in the chat section. Hi from various people. Thank you for posting that link, Natalia.
Yeah. Yes, I'll let you know if there's any question that you need to answer.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. So there is just a brief vignette or glimpse of the rays. Some of you know your rays. Some of them, if you've been studying your rays and for a long time and still don't know your rays, and that's not uncommon. Most people are never 100% certain of their rays. They're always trying on a new ray and tweaking them and coming to a deeper understanding. All right, so a couple of more diagrams. This one on the left here is shows the conditioning triangle of the Great Bear, Sirius and the Pleiades, the emergence of the 7 ray forces from there. They're passing through the sun of our system, the distribution through the various planets in our solar system, and then through those planets through the zodiac that surrounds or conditions our planet Earth. All right. And this one here, the 7 solar systems, there is a class further on down the track about our solar system and where it finds its place within the so-called 7 solar systems, or the greater heavenly being we call the one about whom naught may be said. I'd ask some of you to please mute your microphones and turn off your videos. Thank you. It's a little bit distracting. Next up we have the very fundamental Ageless Wisdom 101, Karma and Reincarnation. I know there are esoteric students who still have doubts about whether this is real, but it is a really old universal law, this fundamental universal law. How does it affect the cyclic re-embodiments of the soul seeking further experience? What are some of the myths surrounding karma and reincarnation in past lives? We have on the left here a Hindu or probably Krishna graphic of the cycle of birth and death, which is quite accurate, of course. And karma being every action has a reaction, whether that action is well-intended or not so well-intended. It comes back around, the wheel of karma. So most of you are familiar with this subject. There are many good books on reincarnation, of course, past lives, and about karma from all different traditions that most of you have probably looked at some point. But again, this material that I'm presenting is coming mainly from Alice Bailey and her books by the Master DK. The etheric, astral, and mental bodies. We could spend one class on each of these bodies, actually. It's a big subject. The more refined and subtle parts of our being, the true patternings behind our physical, emotional, and thinking selves equals the personality. It is this threefold personality of the etheric physical, the astral, and the mental bodies that that we are all seeking to integrate and align so that it can become a fitter vehicle for the higher self or the soul to work through. So the coordination and purification in relation to the chakras. We pass into each different incarnation with slightly more, a slightly higher frequency of atomic substance within each of our personality vehicles, and to the point where, when we are approaching various initiations, these vehicles are vibrating to a much higher degree. Of course, these vehicles constitute the aura, as shown here, many depictions of the aura, many different associations of the chakras as well, and colors associated with the chakras. Some of them are correct. We could say that everybody is right, but from their perspective. Again, the Tibetan or DK has his particular take on this subject, and we can look at these color associations with the rays and the chakras as being essentially broken down into 7 harmonics of each ray. So meditation, the essential discipline for treading the spiritual path. A group meditation every week, of course. And in this class, we explore the stages of meditation: aspiration, concentration, meditation per se, contemplation, illumination. And these stages are also related to 5 consecutive astrological signs: Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. which I've discussed also in some of my newsletters. Visualization as the key to building the rainbow bridge. And that rainbow bridge, of course, is the bridge of light that we construct between personality and soul from lifetime to lifetime. And we pick up the thread of past building when we come into a new incarnation and continue that process through the triangle, if you like, of service, study, and meditation. Service being one of the key factors that builds the antakarana, but all three components of that triangle are so essential to each other. Thought forms. We live in a world of thought forms created by the human race, varying in quality from the sublime to the ridiculous. The creation, the cleansing and dispelling of thought forms. The mental plane as the seat of the soul, the true thinker. So this is a huge subject, and really it is related to the classes on glamour in terms of the crystallized patterns that surround us and are energized in a negative way. Just getting a message here. Who can see this transcript? Do I just turn that off? Okay. The whole realm of what is called karma manas, or desire mind, where these crystallized thought forms are strengthened or whether they're broken up and dissipated. And this is the work of several meditating groups around the world to work with dissipating these old thought forms. Some of them are very, very ancient, millions of years old, thousands of years old, and create problem spots around the world. So we can have the negative thought forms and, of course, the highly evolved thought forms that are essentially geometrical patterns that have been created upon the mental plane, and that we can all contact and reach and bring down, precipitate into our understanding. Telepathy, of course, this is the sending of thought forms or ideas, and it requires a knowledge of the etheric body, which is essential for true telepathy. The book by the Tibetan on telepathy is an amazing read. I mean, they all are, but telepathy is one of my favorites. And it is about working through the different energy centers, understanding the energy centers, so we can see how all these different subjects are linked to one another. There are three types of telepathy as well. We have the lower, medium, and higher telepathy, if you like, to put it very broadly. And of course, that goes for the intuition too. There are the corresponding intuition to those three levels of telepathy that determine the quality of the transmitted idea or thought. And this is related also to the science of the antakarana and its 6 stages of building. One of the major subjects that will be introduced in the mystery schools that are coming in the Aquarian age. Now, just to ask you a question, Natalia, is my picture visible or just off screen a bit? It looks off screen here, but I'm not sure whether it's visible for the video afterwards.
Is everything? Yes, everything's fine.
I just moved it into my vision then, but if I move it to the right, does it change anything from what you're seeing?
No, it's
Okay.
just for you, not for us.
Very good. You'll notice also, in case you're wondering, the picture behind me is one of Nicholas Roerich's paintings of a cave deep under the Himalayas. All right, so the next class is a fascinating one on dreams. And the Tibetan lists the 10 types of dreams. And we discussed dreams from all spiritual traditions, the guidance from dreams, symbols and their interpretation, the dream state, the meditation and meditation relationship, dramatizations by the soul at critical life stages, astral and mental plane dreaming, and to be able to distinguish between what is just a bunch of kind of astral nonsense that you tap into and what is of a dream of a higher caliber. Some of us can rate our dreams from, yes, that one was, one of the first sort of 1, 2 or 3. This one was, I'd rate about 5 or 6. And yes, I had a major one at a critical point of my life that could be an 8 or a 9 as far as a cosmic dream that brought about a great awakening. So, and aspirants to the mysteries are always encouraged to keep a dream diary that is the same diary as the meditation diary, because the meditation process quite often yields results or things that you don't receive in the meditation per se, when you're more receptive in the dream state. And so that's a very important connection to understand. And again, we come back to the nature of the astral body, the purging and purification of the astral body, which is the main hurdle for all aspirants and disciples on the path to move those energies up into the heart, the solar plexus being the grand central station of all the lower chakras, and the relay point where those energies are shifted up to the heart and to the higher centers. Hence the importance of understanding that center, which we'll go into in one of the classes. Astrology, of course, is this is exoteric astrology we're going to look at here. The basics of this re-emerging ancient science, the signs of the zodiac and nature of planetary energies which pass through them and create the confluence of qualities that condition human behavior. What is a house? What is an aspect? What is a sign? And we will have, in the very last class of this course, will be a beginner's guide to esoteric astrology, which you really need an understanding of exoteric astrology to ideally to go into. But essentially, just to take an esoteric interpretation, the zodiac signs, which I've also mentioned in my writings and newsletters, are essentially living beings or groups of angelic beings, to put it as basically as I can. There is one of the classes following is on the angelic kingdom, so we'll cover that in a minute. All right, time to take a breath and maybe invite 1 or 2 questions, clarifications or comments. You can chime in on your audio or the chat section. Right. Go ahead, the woman who was going to speak.
I've just unmuted. Do you mean me?
Yes, I can hear you. Just turn your volume up a bit.
Oh, sorry.
That's better. Thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. I was just going to ask, I'm a raw beginner regarding all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be things that you'd like us to read between the sessions to prepare us for each session?
Sure,
or
absolutely.
Anything like that?
Yeah. Well, there's we'll be giving you links that you can find on the internet and recommending books as well. So, for instance, with the Masters of the Wisdom class, the first book that Alice Bailey wrote is called Initiation, Human and Solar, where all the masters are discussed, the so-called planetary plan, the subject of Shambhala, the planetary center where the will of God is known, so-called. That's one of the best ones to start on. So yes, we'll be doing that.
And if you're not a fast reader, are there also places where you can see videos or listen to talks about this sort of thing that would be helpful?
Yes, there is our YouTube channel, which is very young at the moment, hasn't got many things on it. There's my YouTube channel, where I cover various, for instance, there's a PowerPoint presentation on that about Shambhala, one's on astrology, and so forth. So, and also there's my books. And 20 years of newsletters are on my website as well, and various articles by other people on different subjects. So if you do a search in the search by subject or any of the other menus on the website, you'll find more than enough reading material.
Thank you. My last question to do with that was just, I looked on your website for your books, but it says they can't be shipped to Australia. Is that still correct?
Good to hear an Aussie accent. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. If you're looking at Amazon US, one of the best things to do is to use the VPN, virtual proxy network, which you can get free versions of, and so that the Amazon US thinks that you're in the US buying the book. I have various reports by people who are successful or not successful. This is a big problem. You can buy them on Australia Amazon, but they've doubled the prices, and I have no control over that, unfortunately. So
Okay.
the more I know in the future, I will let people know about that. And the same goes for people in Europe. There's patchy results for people who order from US Amazon. They can order off Amazon in Europe as well, but again, the prices have been put up to a ridiculous level. I think you can buy them for a reasonable price off Spanish Amazon. So,
okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Philip, Nicole has
Yes.
a question in the chat.
Yes.
She says, in learning our race, what are the components to be aware of?
The continents?
Components.
Continents, as in the land masses.
Components.
Components.
Components. Oh, I'm sorry. It's
That's all right. It's all in the pronunciation.
I'm not Australian, you see.
What are the components for what, sorry?
Of the race. In learning our race, what
Right.
are the components to be aware of?
Well, I think that's best answered in the Ray class. It's a huge answer there. But to basically recognize them as streams of cosmic energy that have particular influences psychologically upon every human being and every kingdom in nature, actually. When you can go to my website and find various tabulations on the rays. I think it's under astrology, and you scroll down to various submenus, and you can find tabulations on the 7-ray tabulations, I think it's called. And there's lots and lots of tabulations on the rays there that give you all the psychological definitions, and pick them all out and say, yes, that's me, that's not me, and so forth and so on. So that's the short answer. Okay. Next question.
Okay. It's not about the content of the course, but there's some questions here regarding the donation. So I would like to inform, as I said in the beginning, I just put here the link for the registration page. And when you access the registration page, you have a button that says donate. That's where you do it. And also there's another question here, Philip asking if they get the video after. As I said, maybe you were not in the beginning. So yes, all registered students, the recording of the class is going to be sent afterwards by email.
They'll be available on YouTube, so it may take us a day to process it and upload it to YouTube. It won't be available on Zoom, and it'll be available streaming on YouTube only for those who've donated and registered for the course. 3 new messages here. Okay, very good.
Yeah, you can keep going.
Yeah, thank you. And the next subject, the angelic or diva kingdom, one of my favorites. This parallel evolution to humanity and its role building all forms in nature, be it a flower, a tree, a human being, a thought form, or even a planet. From the very lowest elementals, angels, archangels, healing devas, are as diverse as life itself. Consciously working with these beings as we move into the Aquarian age will be one of the major advances taken by humanity. The Diva Kingdom is regarded as the feminine aspect of evolution, whilst the human kingdom is regarded as the masculine aspect. Eventually there will be a merging of both kingdoms that will be seen as the divine marriage. The spiritual community called Findhorn in Scotland in the 60s, that started in the 60s, was one of the first communities to work consciously with the Diva Kingdom. And there are many books on the Divas, Angelic Kingdom. This book, this picture to the left here, is of a great landscape angel in New Zealand that was painted per the description of the clairvoyant Geoffrey Hodgson, who was also a theosophist. And he has several books on divas with color plates, beautiful pictures like this of the various beings that he perceived. Kingdom of the Gods is one of the main ones. Fairies at Work and Play is another one. I'll go through them all in that class. And we mentioned this class before, the science of the Antakarana. The rainbow bridge that is built over many lives as the link between soul and personality. Its technique, construction by the creative meditator, the immediate task ahead, and the 7-ray methods of building. So you can see this diagram taken from one of the Bailey books indicating the monad, soul, and personality triangles and the Antakarana that is built between these various triangles. The bottom 2 triangles are the main ones that most of us are working with. The more advanced souls are working at building the Antakarana between the soul and the monad. This class, Esoteric Healing, is a very popular one. There's the book, the hardcover version of Esoteric Healing. It's about 750 pages. A lot of the books can be challenging to newcomers, and I would just advise you to persist if you find that. They can't be read through like normal books. They have to be read in bite-sized chunks, chewed and digested. And some of us have read these books 3, 4, 5 times. I've only read Esoteric Healing once, but I really need to reread it at some point. So we have this chakra system taken from Esoteric Healing and the various characteristics of each chakra. So esoteric healing is a holistic healing that works with disease in the etheric, astral, or mental bodies, the origins of disease, the diseases of mystics, the 7 chakras, the 7 endocrine glands, the techniques for esoteric healing, karma, health, racial, mass epidemics. I have quoted in the last couple of years quite a bit from esoteric healing with regard to the so-called pandemic, with regard to mass diseases like the flu and so forth. Several very important quotes from DK, also about mineral drugs, vaccinations and the like. Death and dying. The picture to the left is Saturn, the reaper, who reaps the cycle with his scythe and brings souls out of incarnation and helps them back into the incarnation in many ways. Saturn, the Lord of Karma. So death and dying is a great subject, a fascinating subject. There is even a compilation book of the Bailey books called A Compilation on Death. And So in this class, we look at the process and event of death, dying to the past as healing, the death of old emotional and mental patterns, Eastern and Western attitudes to death, after-death states and reincarnation, mythological and astrological symbology, what heaven and hell actually mean in terms of the higher and lower subplanes of the astral plane. There are many good books and videos on death and dying and near-death experiences, children remembering past incarnations and taking their parents back to places that they know that they've lived in before. And so we're getting so many great proofs of the continuity of consciousness and of incarnations. Many surgeons and doctors now have got books on their experiences in the operating theatre or in their own personal lives of the reality of death and reincarnation, or death and dying. Very exciting subject. I think there's a quote by the Tibetan somewhere where he says, an astonishing statement really, he says the idea or the concept of death, as most of humanity currently see it now, will have evaporated in the next 200 years, the next 2 centuries, which is a very short time, because the fear of death has kept humanity in thrall since ancient Atlantean times by the emphasis on the unknown and fear by the materialistic forces. And so for that to unfold in this first phase of the Aquarian age, when the mystery schools will be re-established as well, is quite revolutionary, is it not? And it's happening already now. In the last 50 years, there's been an amazing stride forward in academic circles with psychologists and so forth, all recognizing these esoteric facts. Sirius, the dog star, very exciting subject that evokes great curiosity, interest, and mystical feelings, if you like. The dog star has been prominent in many cultures and religions, having particular relevance for Earth in this cycle. The Syrian law of karma conditions this solar system. Hence, Earth's alignment to that spiritual law is an essential part of her destiny. Sirius has been prominent in many temples and pyramids around the world for millennia. And it is one of the 3 major constellations that condition that where the 7 rays pass through and condition this solar system. This solar system as a whole, or our solar logos, is regarded as the lower self of Sirius, being the higher self to our solar system as a whole. And it is said that the majority of souls on Earth, once they've liberated themselves, that is, taken the higher initiations and don't have to come back again, will travel on the so-called cosmic path to Sirius, one of the 7 cosmic paths. So not everyone will go there, but the bulk of human souls will go there. In many ways, we all carry this Sirian substance that we picked up way back in Lemurian times when we first incarnated at the so-called time of individualization, when we became conscious, living, evolving souls. And this class, of course, is about the soul and the so-called egoic lotus, which is depicted here in this diagram. The various petals, the knowledge, love, and sacrifice petals of the egoic lotus. And of course, the final kernel in the center, these 3 petals in the center that unfold at liberation, essentially. What is the nature of the soul and its mansion, the causal body? The 12 petals of the lotus unfold over many incarnations until at journey's end, the hidden jewel is revealed in all its beauty, liberation from Earth if we so choose. Some, like the current Masters of Wisdom, choose to take the first cosmic path of Earth service and stay here and not go back to Sirius or whatever other path and watch over humanity. And in the words of Sanat Kumara, the planetary logos who resides in Shambhala, they stay on their watch until the last weary pilgrim comes home. Very beautiful, moving passage, that one. What is the Aquarian age that we're going into? When does it start? The new 2,160 years cycle of the water bearer, the man or woman who bears a pitcher of water upon their shoulders, the waters of love wisdom that are poured forth for thirsting humanity, the energy of Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, and also the ruler of the seventh ray as they condition humanity via Aquarius. And other signs too. The seventh ray passes through about 3 or 4 zodiac signs: Capricorn, Cancer, Aries. New ways of living, group initiation, New Age culture and civilization. These are all themes related to Aquarius. The science, the new Aquarian science of invocation and evocation. These are the esoteric sciences that will eventually blend with the exoteric sciences that we are familiar with today. That is the whole purpose of the Masters of Wisdom returning, of helping to set up the mystery schools along with all their disciples and initiates and aspirants, of course, and teaching these spiritual laws to the public at large, who are very close and ready, many are ready for these teachings, to and to take various initiations, expansions of consciousness, and move forward together. At the moment, we are at a critical stage in Earth evolution because the exoteric sciences have been abused severely and manipulated to hold humanity back, in a sense, as I've been discussing for the last few years in particular. And so the fifth ray of science or knowledge is the only ray to pass through Aquarius. But Aquarius is governed by Uranus, the so-called planet of science, and the ruler of the seventh ray of ceremonial order or magic, the ray of organization. So you can see how all these themes fit in with each other. So like all rays, signs, or planets, there is a higher and lower expression. At the moment, as we move into Aquarius, we are seeing the shadow of Aquarius expressing itself through group work and science, but unalloyed with compassion, without compassion. This is my personal view anyway. There are many good things going on in the development of the various sciences too. This must be acknowledged. Well, on a sixth ray theme, the ray of religion, of devotion, of idealism, we have this subject, the New Age religion. The synthesis of all world religions impulsed by humanity's unfolding consciousness. The marriage of East and West derived from Buddhism and Christianity. We're talking about, the Buddha and the Christ, for instance. Comparative religion. Old religions dressed up in new clothes. Unity and synthesis. The interfaith movement is the beginning, is the seed of the syntheses that will take place in the next couple of centuries. Because, as DK rightly says, lambasts us, in fact, he talks about the shocking state of crystallized religion, of all world crystallized religions, some, of course, far more crystallized than others. And so I have 2 links here. The blending of races and cultures is one link, one essay that I wrote on religion. And this one here, Become as Little Children, a New World Religion, that I presented at a conference several years ago. Chakras. This is, of course, connected to the healing class a more in-depth focus on the 7 major and 22 minor human energy centers and their importance in understanding causes of disease, the ray methods of healing, and the role that esoteric astrology can play in diagnosing disease and understanding karma. For instance, one of the 3rd ray methods for healing is via herbs and those kind of substances that come from the earth. But there are many, like a 5th ray healing, incorporates allopathic medicine, surgery, and so forth, for instance. Even some pharmaceuticals, shock horror. And there are the main healing ray, of course, is the 2nd ray of love wisdom, the indigo blue healing ray that most healers are on in terms of their soul ray, I think. Chakras 2, a continuation of previous week's themes, the etheric body of the chakras, the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna nadis that run up the spine, the triple energy streams that run up the back of the spine. The petals of the chakras are very interesting science within itself. You could study just that for your whole life and still, be scratching the surface. There is so much to find out and understand with the energy centers, which, of course, in Atlantean times was called the science of Laya Yoga, Laya. I realize there's a lot to take in here, and by the time this class is finished, you may be well overwhelmed by the amount of material, but and it can be very humbling. And I myself, I'm always continually humbled by the depth of the material and how much I don't know in this work. In fact, some of the books written by DK, I think it's Rays and Initiations. He was one of the masters who has one of the greatest vistas of knowledge amongst all the masters. And apparently some of the masters even study books like Rays and the Initiations. So it gives you a sense of some of the complexities and the different levels that the books are written on. You can read a book one year and come back a few years later and read it on another level entirely, because your understanding has increased and expanded in that interim period. And so you're ready for the next level, as I think I said before. And on my website, you can find an article about DK and his work and new commentaries about a certain couple of pictures that have came out that were reputedly him, like actual photographs taken in the 1800s, the late 1800s or early 1900s, which I believe have been refuted from memory. But he was in a very old body in that lifetime when he was transmitting and also sending snail mail from Tibet to America, where Alice Bailey was at that time. So I suspect he's taken a new body by now, and male or female, who knows? Even the Christ himself may come back in a female body. The masters will all reincarnate according to the usual methods through conception and natural birth, but some of them will also just build a body of a Maya Varupa, as it's called, a body of illusion that they can dissipate or build at will.
Andy is asking which masters are now serving in body at this.
Well, we don't really know, but for instance, the Shohans who actually live, like the Master Moya Kutumi, who live in a secret valley in Tibet, as does Dwaj Kul, are all in physical bodies, as far as I understand. But they may not use those physical bodies when the hierarchy externalizes. They may build other ones. Likewise, with people like the Master Hilarion, who's supposed to be based in Crete, the Master Rakotsky, who's supposed to be based in the Carpathian Mountains in Europe. They inhabit physical bodies, I imagine, but I don't really know. So I can't really answer that question. And the next question was?
Yes, next is from Lee, and it says, Fourth Atlantis, relevant to today, will it be covered? Love the so-called...
Yes, it will. We'll get to that in a minute. The other question that someone mentioned was about some woman claiming to be channeling DK.
Yes.
Since I've been studying these teachings for the last 30 years, I've come across probably about 20 or 30 people who said that they're channeling DK. Most of them, when I've looked at their writings, have been fairly average and sort of platitudinous, and so have been pretty much astral entities masquerading as DK. There is a third stage of the teachings that is to come, and we're waiting for that, and they may even be being transmitted now, for all we know. But because this was forecast that this would happen in the third and final phase of the teachings that were planned through Blavatsky originally in the late 1800s, through Alice Bailey and also Helen O'Rourke in the early 1900s, and the third phase of the teachings early in this century. So that covers that. And what was the third question?
Okay, so now it's I'm trying to do a resume. Anyway, F. Daniel, this is just a comment. He says that his understanding is that they can manifest at will, but only when necessary and to those who are attuned.
Yeah. I was just going to say the masters, they stimulate all of us in many ways. Some ways, most times, we may not be realizing it, or we're being stimulated through the ashram with which we are affiliated. We get stimulation and inspiration and aspiration in that respect. I do know certain individuals who have had definite connections with the masters. That's a fact. There are hundreds, thousands of people who have, both in the esoteric community and in the mundane world, because there are many disciples and initiates working in politics, sciences, the area of music, and you name it. So go ahead. Sorry, Natalia.
Okay, so this, I think it's interesting. Donna asks, is this esoteric knowledge something we all know on some level and then is revealed, remembered as we need it, or for some particular purpose?
Both yes and no. We may have it from previous lifetimes. If we don't have it, we may recognize it intuitively and resonate with it. So that's the short answer there. But I should move on now.
Sure, yes, Philip, because there's a question regarding the race, and I would like to give the answer that when that lesson comes, everything will be explained, and we'll talk about it, and this is only...
I can see the question there. The 12 rays is an erroneous channeled factor. In general, there is a multiplicity of rays, but when I see that 12 rays thing, I think I know the sources where that comes from, and it is misleading. It has grains and threads of truth in it, but it's not the real deal. And quite a lot of that stuff on the 12 rays is like from channeling stuff, so it's inaccurate and misleading. That's the short answer, but we can get into more of that in the rays class. I'm going to pass the last question there. Is the connection? Can we see the connection to the masters of in the natal astrology chart? No. How do we know what is the real deal? We have to exercise our discernment and discrimination, and that's one of the major teachings of the occult teachings, because there is the factor of belief, and then there's the factor of knowing. And if you don't know, then you'll be a believer of something that resonates with you, but not all that you believe in with which you resonate may be true. So we developed this thing called viveka, as it's called in Sanskrit, from lifetime to lifetime, a deeper sense of discernment and discrimination. All right, I better move on. And the next subject here is the solar system, which I showed you a couple of diagrams earlier on. The incarnation of that vast life we call the solar logos, and differentiation into its system of planets and invisible worlds. This theme of invisible worlds is very important because we'll touch upon this in the next few classes. The cycles of the life wave that expresses through the schemes, the chains, the globes and rounds of the solar system. So we have these visible planets, but we have chains and globes of associated invisible chains and globes of all the planets that are in various stages of decay, if they're past incarnations of that planet, or of building of new incarnations of those planets over extraordinarily long periods of time. So, of course, these planets are the distributors for the seven rays. They are the rulers of the seventh ray. For instance, Saturn rules the third ray. Jupiter rules the second ray of love wisdom. The Earth is associated with the third ray, Venus the fifth ray, and so forth, and so on. Now, these are two other diagrams that are, this is for more advanced teachings, but I do include it here because these are, this diagram on the right is simply a colored version of the diagram on the left. And this is the solar system from a diagrammatic esoteric point of view. The triangle of the sun at the top here, the so-called planetary schemes, the Uranus scheme, the Neptune scheme, the Saturn scheme, the Earth scheme, all the planetary schemes, and they are all in these geometrical patterns associated with one another. And inside each scheme are these seven chains of each scheme, the seven chains, and within each chain, those little spokes inside each chain, are the seven globes of each chain, making 49 globes or incarnations for that being or that entity we call that planet over an extraordinarily long period of time. And this is the basis of my book, Unveiling Genesis, Mysteries of the Root Races and Cycles. I try and unpack that in the simplest way possible. And also my video called The Hidden History of Humanity, 2.5-hour video that you can find on my on YouTube that will inform you of a lot of those technicalities. A good place to start is the video, in fact. And if you want to go deeper, dive deeper, then the book will give you more explication. So the Earth scheme, we discussed the Earth scheme, the moon chain evolution preceding the Earth and its karmic link. The moon in the sky today is a previous incarnation of the Earth, you could say. The rounds of evolution and the role of lunar and solar peak trees, or the angelic kingdom, as the foundation of human evolution. The so-called spark of mind conferred upon humanity in Lemuria at individualization. All these things will be discussed in this class. And a few more close-ups of the globes and chains and schemes and things. And this class is the evolution of the races, the root races and the evolution of consciousness from very ancient Lemuria, where humanity individualized, through to the fabled Atlantis, which sunk so long ago. Well, it had 4 major sinkings of a very long time. And in my book, Unveiling Genesis, I detail all those sinkings. The last sinking, the 4th and final sinking of which is the most well known, of Poseidonus, about 13,000 years ago. And so I have various diagrams and tables throughout all my books on the timelines. So they're enormous timelines. They come from the traditional Sanskrit, the Rig Veda, the Vedas, and so forth. And basically, one of my great passions is to reinstall or to re-educate the correct chronology of the world as opposed to the fundamentalist Christian interpretation of 6,000 years ago. For instance, individualization has a precise figure on it, actually, given by DK, 21,688,414,000 years ago, from the time he wrote that. And all these hints that have been given by Blavatsky in The Secret Doctrine and by DK through all his books gave me about a 10-year research period in which to put all this material together into the Hidden History video and in that book, giving signposts along the way of that all confirm and qualify and prove each other in terms of these greater chronological time spans, which even many esotericists find hard to accept, because we all have our conditioning, our cultural conditioning from school and so forth. So we deal with the fifth root race, the one we're in now, for instance. You can see this table here of the various sub-races of the fifth root race. We're in the current fifth sub-race going into the sixth sub-race at the moment. And in other videos, I think that are on, in my YouTube channel, you'll find commentary about the future sixth root race and so forth. But this class is just the fifth root race. We discuss the current race in which humanity finds itself, its challenges, and new sub-races forming with a synthesis of world cultures and traditions. Australia, New Zealand, and California, their roles in the coming sixth root race of the fifth root race. The so-called mystery schools and their externalization. There will be 7 beginners schools and 7 advanced schools, 3 each of which are going to be in Australia, New Zealand, California, others in Europe, in Russia, Egypt, Syria, I mentioned California, the Midwest of the States, and so forth. And you can find many of these essays in my books as well, on Destiny of the Nations. This class will be looking at the nations that are ruled by planets and signs and rays. The spiritual destiny of humanity as it unfolds through the many individual entities we call nations, astrological ray cycles and yugas that determine this process. I go into the yugas in much greater detail in my book Hidden History, renamed actually into Unveiling Genesis, expanded and revised in Unveiling Genesis. The genius that comes forth from the heart of a nation via the great souls incarnate within it. And in terms of current challenges on the planet, our Easter conference our Easter conference, I should say, in April 2023 is called the European Unity Toward Global Unification. And we'll be examining all the countries in Europe and their rays, their astrology, and their relationship to each other, and we'll be having many meditations as well to try and bring about a greater unity to overcome the existing schisms that are apparent all around. And if Europe can be unified, then the globe can be unified. Of course, the rest of the globe, Europe transplanted to Australia and New Zealand, to the Americas, to practically everywhere, and vice versa. Since then, all those various races and nationalities also resettling back in Europe. We're having a huge synthesis of races and nations now. Class 28 and 29 and 30, Glamour, Maya, and Illusion. I quote this book quite a lot as well. Glamour, a World Problem by Alice Bailey. We live in a sea of illusion from which we are constantly trying to extricate ourselves. Racial and individual glamours, the causes producing glamour in the world, duality in the pairs of opposites. None of us are free from Maya, glamour, or illusion. Maya is more related to the physical plane, glamour to the astral plane, where most of humanity is astrally polarized, so, and illusion more to the mental plane. And we all carry some aspect of that because none of us have reached perfection yet, of course. And so part of this work in occultism is ruthlessly identifying within yourselves the glamours that you have. For instance, the tabulations on my website that I mentioned before that you can go to about the rays has also the glamours of the seven rays. And if you go through and answer the negative and positive qualities of each of those ray glamours, then you'll get an idea that will contribute to an idea of the rays in your makeup. Part 2, using intuition, illumination, and inspiration to offset relative states of glamour. The so-called dweller on the threshold, or shadow, the villain we battle with the angel of the that battles, I should say, with the angel of the presence, which is another name for the soul. The ending, part 3, the ending of glamour and the technique of presence of light and indifference, etheric force distribution and manipulation, the science of the breath and technique of fusion. This is a deeply esoteric subject. And as I said before, there are various glamour meditation groups around the planet that are familiar with this material and who are working to eradicate world glamour, trying to apply practically the laws that are given in this book, Glamour, a World Problem. Very challenging, but extremely illuminating to just even glimpse part of this subject. You can see a quote, a table over here taken from the book, actually. Aspects of glamour: illusion, mental, glamour, astral, maya, etheric, and then giving different other qualities and techniques for the path of initiation, the path of discipleship, the path of privation, and so forth and so on. And when you do these meditations, you are really humbled in terms of, A, the ability to hold your concentration and direct energy, because this is what really occultism is. It's about becoming conscious white magicians and directing energy. And not only concentration, but also using the visualization factor, the imagination, drawing upon the astral body to build in new substance that wasn't present before, and thereby help to build the new paradigm of the emerging Aquarian age. The mantras and the great invocation, the secret knowledge of mystic mantras, the potency of sound, mantras as a powerful personal and world transformation tool, the gift to humanity of the great invocation and its cyclic use. We can use this as well in various classes, and also this class. Most of you are familiar with the great invocation. There have been several books written about this. If you can just mute yourself there, please. About this subject that show the incredibly intricate nature of how this mantra was translated into English with the exact numerical frequencies that were required to make it so potent. This new world prayer, if you like, the great invocation that we sound every full moon cycle, and looking at other mantras too, of course. There are many, many mantras in the Buddhist and Hindu traditions. The power of sound in many ways, the potency of sound. And speaking of sound, 3 classes on sound and music, which I haven't done for a long time. I'm looking forward to this one because music is the universal language, essentially, that crosses all human language barriers. In the beginning was the word, and sound is the occult cause behind all creation. whether it be a human being, a planet, or a galaxy. It can be constructive or destructive, depending upon what is needed at various stages of evolution. Sound and music too. What type of new music is going to evolve that will inspire and guide humanity? Music as an awakener of the heart and the intuition. The evolution of music through different cultures, the effects upon the aura and chakras. We all know that when we listen to beautiful music, we are lifted up completely and healed in many ways. And in this day and age of many conflicting sounds in our environment, this is one of my pet subjects of noise pollution, essentially, whether it's in so-called modern music or in our environment every day. So part 3, the evolution of classical music in the last 600 years, the spiritual effects and its spiritual effects upon humanity, the great composers that have come forth as expressions of the various cyclic ray conditionings upon spiritual groups, modern music, jazz, rock and roll, folk, etc. I try and cover all those in those 3 classes. You can see here there's a musical zodiac. There is a note associated with the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 7 rays as well. That's a particularly arcane, super interesting area to look into, because everything is frequency, is it not? All right. 3 classes on the externalization of the hierarchy. So this is related to the Masters class. The imminent emergence of the Masters and their specific work by the ashrams and their workers. The new spiritual festivals through regenerated religion, education, and the new masonry. The externalization part 2, the ashramic groups dedicated to creating the new freedoms in the areas of politics, economics, science, and the arts, money and barter. Portray Christ's role in the synthesis of world religions and spirituality. Part 3, the greatest spiritual opportunities for planet Earth now. Ray cycles, ashrams, the whole science of avatars. So there are many sub-sciences to the esoteric sciences. The inertia created by materialistic forces, which we are experiencing in extremis in this last few years, and probably for the next few years as well. The great unification, again, as a universal world prayer. We see some of these pictures of the Masters. This funny one here, Blavatsky with Kutumi. Whoops, I can't actually edit that, so I won't click on it. With Kutumi on the left, the Master Moya in the middle, and the Master Rakotsi or Master R on the right. DK up here in the middle, Moya on the left, Kutumi on the right, Master Rakotsi here, or Saint Germain, one of his incarnations on the left, Saint Germain again over here, the Master Jesus in his various guises through famous paintings like, famous painters, I should say, like Titian. So huge subject. Money. Money in the age of Aquarius, the right use of energy and resources. Money is the consolidation of the living, loving energy of divinity. Spiritual energies versus materialism. The funds required to create a new world and the redistribution of wealth. Show me the money. So, being close to the end, and we'll have plenty of time for any more questions and comments. Sex and the law of attraction. Sex is probably the greatest mystery for humanity, the answers to which are only revealed at the final stages of the spiritual path. The law of attraction and repulsion. Sex in the cosmos, sex on Earth. And here we have a famous painting of Venus cavorting with Mars, and then Vulcan, Venus's wife, rushes in and says, "What's going on here?" It's so we can find interesting in mythology. There are many, many keys to esotericism. For instance, Vulcan and Venus are the esoteric and exoteric rulers of Taurus, which I've mentioned several times in my writings. And Venus, of course, represents the mind in esoteric astrology, but she filters down to the astral plane interpretation in exoteric astrology as the goddess of sex and relationships. But on all levels, she's the goddess of beauty, the reconciled pairs of opposites upon the mental plane that she is responsible for doing, and that creates beauty and harmony and balance. All those keywords of Libra, another sign that Venus rules. So, and my last newsletter for Libra actually cycled back around since 2017 when I wrote 2 newsletters on sex, to the sex theme again, and probably will in the Scorpio newsletter coming up as a 5-year interim period between looking at that subject where it is today. Right, so last but not least, esoteric astrology, an introduction, the formulas for esoteric interpretation of a horoscope. What relation does the soul chart have to the conception chart, the rising sign and sun sign as expressions of soul and personality, and much more. Of course, a very basic beginner's class. Here are 5 of my books on the rays. The volume 5 has just come out a few months ago. On all my essays for the last 20-odd years on esoteric astrology and the 7 rays as applied to famous personalities in history and, of course, world events. So let's see what's in the chat here.
Lee wants to the answer for his previous question, and I'm asking him if he can repeat the question, please.
What question is that?
Yes, it's like above. I cannot find it also. I don't remember. Sorry. If you can repeat your question.
I'm just scrolling up. I can find it. Lee, 4th root race Atlantis, she says, relevant to today. Will it be covered? Yes, I said. Yeah, Lee, the very much. I mention it continuously in my newsletters because World War I and II and this so-called Third World War we're in now, which is hopefully not going to precipitate to the physical plane, but certainly a third and final phase of the war, is a recapitulation of the Atlantean War that happened just before the major flooding of Atlantis, the first major flooding of Atlantis. And DK tells us that most of humanity is still polarized in Atlantean or astral consciousness, and ordinary humanity, if you like, non-thinking humanity. And so, yes, it still features big, and it will feature largely as well as we go into the 6th root race, because many of the sunken continents in Atlantis will rise back up again in the 6th root race and will reveal many hidden mysteries, temples, artifacts, and proofs of Atlantis. There is with the septenary counting system, there's a 1357 line and a 246 line that can be counted with the rays, the 246 line of even rays, of love wisdom rays, 1357 line of mental rays, and likewise with the root races. So Atlantis will have a direct relation to the 6th root race. That's the short answer. Anyway, I could go on all day about that one. It's a big subject, and apparently I've worked in the book trade a long time, in bookstores in different countries, in Australia and Britain, and it is said that there have been more books written about Atlantis than any other subject. It's quite an amazing statement, isn't it? I believe it because we had a huge section in our bookstore in Australia, the Sydney Esoteric Bookshop, on Atlantis. Various people's different takes on it. One of the main things I can say, based on these many books that I see, who claim they've finally found the lost Atlantis, as if it's in one place, but Atlantis was scattered around the globe. There were many islands and continents in the northern Atlantic and southern Atlantic oceans, but it also was in various other places in the world, particularly the eastern portion of the Americas, North and South America. So, of course, that borders the southern and northern Atlantic oceans, but also in places like Indonesia and parts of the Pacific too. So, but there were some central core Atlantean places that could be considered the Atlantis, but it's a bit of a misconception to say it's in one place. All right. Bit more time, another 10 minutes perhaps, for if we want to explore anything else. Any other questions?
I have a general astrology question, if it's all right to ask.
Is that you, Rachel?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
I think I read somewhere that your sun sign is what you've already learned or something, and that your ascendant is what you are yet to master or something. I don't know if there's any, if that's right, but if that's correct, then what happens when your sun sign and rising sign are the same?
You're developing that quality on a higher turn of the evolutionary spiral. That's the short answer. The sun sign represents the threefold lower self or personality. The rising sign represents the soul or the soul ray working through that rising sign. You cannot get the rays from your chart, by the way, but the sun sign represents the sign you disincarnated in your last life. So if you died in Leo, you will come back as a Leo. And that way you pick up the past thread of incarnational experience, because the threefold personality that represents the sun holds the memory of the different bodies, the so-called permanent atom of the etheric, astral and mental bodies, the permanent atoms, where the sum total of all your life experiences in those bodies for all incarnations resides. And so when the soul comes to reincarnate again, it draws upon the memory patterns and the karma inherent in those permanent atoms and reincarnates to get the right sort of body and circumstances and karmic situations for the next life. And so when the soul incarnates in that birth month, it's called the sun of probability because it knows it's going to be incarnating in that sun sign. But the sun of possibility is the rising sign, and the soul waits at the birth hour or the birth day to incarnate in the correct birth hour to get the right rising sign on the eastern horizon, so that it can develop that soul quality in this lifetime. But for the majority of unawakened humanity, that rising sign simply becomes a mask that you wear. And that's why exoteric astrology sees the rising sign as the personality and the sun sign as the spirit, whereas in esoteric astrology it's the reverse. That's the short answer.
Thank you.
I'd love to take in there. The moon represents what we've really learned, to the point where it's the shadow, it's the dweller on the threshold. It's our blind spot that we need to work through far more consciously.
Thank you.
Philip, Lee has a question, and I think it was by mistake he sent it directly to me, but I'm asking, are we looking to reclaim this knowledge from those who have subverted it?
Yes, in a way. occultism the word occultism is generally regarded by the general public as dark and, evil. It simply means that which is hidden, as does the word esotericism. Well, esotericism, sorry, is more about knowledge for the few who are ready. But both of them are used interchangeably for the hidden mystery teachings. And so you can only step this material down so far. If people, can bring the horse to water, but if the horse isn't ready to drink, if it doesn't recognize or resonate with the material before it, then generally the person isn't ready. So what we have distinct from occultism or esotericism is the whole field of the so-called New Age teachings, which the Bailey material is lumped into. But the general New Age teachings are a mishmash of many traditions and individual authors, some of whom are very, very good, who've done excellent work, of course. And they're the kind of more stepping stones towards true occultism or esotericism. So that's why my work is involved with trying to make the practical, everyday earthly events appear intelligible through esoteric astrology and ray interpretation. So there's so many things to consider, but look, I must say to you all, don't be daunted by the sheer volume and scope of this material. We are all beginners upon the path. We have to start somewhere. It's a great discipline, I think, this work, to read through it, reflect upon it, meditate, and to engage with like-minded groups who are using the same sort of material to create community, both online and physical. This retreat center, as it's called, is not in bricks and mortar yet, but we hope to have something somewhere down the track where people can visit and learn and partake of the teachings and meditate and contribute to the community. That's why we have a donation system, and this course plus the conference next year and the webinars that we've been running for the last 6 months are the beginnings of our service activity that we hope to have more people involved with as we go.
Yes, Philip, I'd like to add, because, when we talk about money and spirituality, I just would like to really stress out that the association is a non-profit organization, and it's like a serious, registered and everything. So whatever the donations are for the association to go and do more things on what we believe it's important to do. I just would like to make that comment.
Thank you, Natalia. It's great. Yeah, it's all about practical occultism. I think that that phrase was coined by Blavatsky way back to apply what you've learned. There are many ivory tower scholars who have this wonderful knowledge. You can have great conversations with them, but it remains just abstract knowledge that is not really practically applied through meditation, through visualization, through esoteric education and so forth. So that's what we're attempting to do in the Aquarian Wisdom Center Retreat initiative.